Wonderful.
When Mr. Oshima came to you to talk about the subject, did you go for it immediately?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I pretty much went for it, not even knowing what the story was about, only because of Oshima's name himself as a number one or number two Japanese director. I mean, it's a privilege to be asked to do something with him. And I was even more eager when I read the book from which the screenplay was to be written. He first came to see me over in New York when I was doing Elephant Man.
About the Elephant Man, compared to the film version of this, in which John Merrick is played by John Hurt, it must have been pretty risky to do it without any makeup at all.
I'm not sure. I think it's probably harder to do it with makeup, you know, because the imagination can work very hard for you. For the audience, when there's no makeup, it's easier for them to envisage what he must have looked like. But with makeup, the ugliness is set in place and it can't be moved. And you might think, well, it's not very ugly at all. And you kind of, after, you know, the initial shock, it's quite easy to not be put off by the makeup. But always with no makeup, it's easier for the audience to envisage all kinds of terrible things.
You did see the film version. What did you think of it?
I loved it. I wish we'd done ours in black and white. It's hard to do on stage. Black and white looks so much part of old London.
Mr. Oshima declared later that he didn't choose you, but that in a way you chose him to choose you, let's say. Were you...
It's very philosophic.
Were you aware of that, or...?
Not really. I mean, I just let him know immediately when he came to see me that he had an idea for a movie, that I would jump into the movie, whatever it was. I kind of thought, I wish I hadn't said that when he left, because sometimes the scripts are so awful, but fortunately this script was terrific. By Paul Mayersberg, who also did Man Who Fell to Earth as well.
Oshima said about you that you have an indestructible inner force, and when he added...
Not on Saturday nights.
Listen, during the Cannes press conference, that you were extremely beautiful, powerful, and pure. You just said that.
Of course, absolutely.
Next to him chewing...
He's a very perceptive man.
No, but seriously, what does it do to you when people make you that kind of compliment?
Makes me sweat. What can I say? That's very kind of him. I also think that he's a dynamic, wonderful person as well.
But you have to fulfill that because he sees that in you.
I'd have to work hard at acting, but the reason for that, I think, is that it's so hard for somebody in music to jump over and do movies. The idea of them being a rock musician is always at the front of the audience's mind, and it's very hard to... You've got to fight twice as hard and try and work twice as well as you would do if one was just a struggling actor. That's not fair. I know most struggling actors work really hard as well. But one feels as though there's another wall to break down still. It's very hard.
Please tell about the working...
Mind you, I've done some dumb movies, so...
We come to that later.
We come to the dumb movies.
But please tell us about the working method of Mr. Oshima, because it seems to be rather uncommon.
I guess not with the... Yes, it is, when applied to Hollywood standards, but I guess in terms of the left wing or the avant-garde, it's not so different at all. He would sketch out the idea of a scene and give us some basic ideas for lines taken from Paul Mayersberg's script, and then allow us, the actors, to throw our ideas backwards and forwards. And just at the point where we thought we were getting somewhere, he would stop and say, right, now we go. And he would film it, and so one sort of thrown into the scene. I enjoyed working like that. I haven't worked like that before in film.
And he also shot in chronological order.
Yes, he shot to edit in camera. Shot in camera, which was quite bizarre. And sent it... There was no facility for having... any rushes on the island. So the stuff would be wrapped up in brown paper and sent off to Tokyo. not knowing whether it was going to be good or bad or whatever. And he never saw any rushes during the entire filming. Yet within 4 days of getting back to Tokyo, he'd got a rough edit finished.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Frightening. I mean, he only did maybe 2 takes average, and often 1 take, very rarely more than 2 takes. A couple of times 3 takes.
Unbelievable. About your working relationship with Mr. Oshima,
Yeah.
you've said that you understood each other much better than you have understood many Western directors that you worked with.
Yeah.
Does it imply that you're more close to an Eastern way of thinking, or?
No, it's just I think that with the exception of maybe Nick Rogue, the other 2 directors with I was going to say all the others, but there aren't all the others, there's 2. The other 2 guys possibly were thinking in terms of bucks to save and production company pressures.
A couple of years ago, Sidney Pollack made a film called The Yakuza,
Yeah.
in which there was a rather intelligent comparison between Eastern and Western violence.
Oh, that was where old Bobby Mitchum got his finger.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was a good movie, that,
yeah,
wasn't
absolutely,
it?
absolutely.
Didn't do very well. I was surprised. It's
Paul Schrader wrote it.
It was lovely.
Yeah, but do you accept that there is a difference in Eastern or Western violence?
I think there's a greater emphasis on violence being a part of the spirit that must be built in the Japanese culture. It's not as apparent in the Western. We just like to go and fight because we want to steal countries or steal something another country's got. But it's not quite that way in the East. It's part of being. Violence is, as much as lovemaking, is quite as important. It should be worked on as hard as lovemaking. You know, it's quite odd. I'm not comfortable with it at all. That kind of violence. You see a lot of these, some of the karate trained guys that were working on the film, there was an overpowering charisma of violence about them. Not on the, I mean, off the set. And one always felt very tentative about getting too close to them or talking to them, or at least talking to them about anything that might be considered intimate. Because you, I know they're not very straight, but they're the only ones I've got. And it's sort of, you know, one always felt very wary about getting too close to these people.
Ryuichi Sakamoto, who plays Captain Yonai, he was also responsible for the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Was it ever envisioned to have you compose the other half of it?
I would never I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, in order to have another confrontation.
I would never have considered it because I've tried very hard to stay away from any music in any films that I'm supposedly an actor in.
Yeah.
Because it's hard enough just sort of being convincing as an actor without saying, and the music's written by him as well. So if you don't like his acting, you might like the music. They've got to like the acting only.
I'm personally a great admirer of Tom Conti.
Yes, he's fantastic.
You should see him more on the screen.
He's absolutely terrific.
Is there any similarity between his approach to acting and yours?
He's an intelligent actor. I'm a behaviourist. I mean, I'm much more, I do everything just by instinct. He's got such a wonderful analytical mind about how characters should work and how they interplay with each other. And I can't work like that. I just have to not know what I'm going to do and then just sort of do it and hope it comes out all right.